Hello chess friends, here I have another interesting game to share with you. This is the game between Grandmasters Daniel Fridman and Grandmaster Nepo. They played this game on a Sparkassen chess meeting in Dortmund. Fridman played with the white pieces and he opens the game with move d4. Jan played knight to f6 and then we have c4 g6. After that knight to c3, d5 move, and we are in the green field. So bishop goes to f4 and then bishop to g7, white play e3 and then c5. So black wants to attack white's strong centers, and here a Fridman capture on c5, so queen to a5. Now that queen makes pressure on the bishop on c3, which is protected, but he can play something like knight to e4 and open the bishop, so he will attack the knight on c3, and also he attacks the pawn on c5. So white play rook to c1, and then we have knight to e4. White of course cannot move this knight because he is pinned on the dark diagonal, so he plays c capture d5, so he took 2 pawns, but knight capture on c3, and then we have queen to d2 move. White is not looking for that to take it immediately because he first wants to take control over the dark diagonal with his queen from d2, and now we can see that black is pinned, so he cannot move the knight because he will lose the queen. So queen capture on a2 and then b capture c3. So after that queen goes back to a5, knight to f3 and then knight to d7, attacks the pawn on c5, bishop to c4. It is time to develop bishop and make the castle. So knight captures c5, white makes the castle, black makes the castle, and then bishop to e5. White recognized the opponent's bishop from g7, looks very good, and he wants to trade them. So bishop capture e5, knight capture e5, and then move f6, which attacks the knight. So this knight can be moved back, but here Fridman wants to play one move in between. So first he moved the rook on the square a1 and attacks the queen. Queen is under attack, so Jan needs to move the queen back, but he could also try knight to e4 move, which will attack the opponent queen. So queen goes to d4, for example, and after that he could take on c3, offer queens for trade, and if queen capture on e4, it is good to know that the e5 knight is also hanging, but that did not happen in the game. And after rook a1, black played the move queen to b6. After that we have knight to f3, and then king goes to h8. White moves the queen on d4, and then queen goes to c7. And here white wants to take a space in the center, so he play move e4 with the idea to play in the future e5 and d6. So after black played move b5, which is an interesting move because he attacks the bishop, and here is choice for white. What to do? He could capture the pawn, but if he capture, the knight goes to b3. It is attack for the queen and the rook, and it looks that he will lose material. But if he moves the queen on e3, knight capture on a1, rook capture on a1, and then black will probably try to advance with his a pawn. After that, knight goes to d4, and this is an equal position. Black is playing with better material, he's up for exchange, but white is playing with a good initiative, so the position is not so clear. But after move b5, here white decided to play move d6, so he wants to save his bishop, and queen capture on d6, bishop capture on b5. Now it is not the same thing. If black moves the knight on b3, that will attack the queen and attack the rook. So queen can be moved on d6, so white can trade the queens, and after e capture d6, this rook is free to go, so he can go on square a3, for example. So after bishop capture to b5, here Jan moved his bishop to b7, and then queen capture d6, e capture d6, knight goes to d2, support the pawn here, but knight capture on e4, knight capture e4, and bishop capture to e4. This position looks that black is playing with pawn up. So rook from f to e1 was played, bishop is under attack, so bishop to f5, and rook to a6. White wants to attack the pawn on d6, and also he makes pressure on the pawn on a7, which is standing on a dark square, and both of them are playing with the light colored bishops, so they cannot control dark squares, and it is very good to know that pawn on a7 and pawn on d6 are standing on the dark squares. So rook from f to d8 was played, and then rook goes to e7. Really good rooks we can see for white. Rook on e7, rook on a6, they attacks the pawn on a7. So rook from d to b8 was played, so he attacks the bishop, and this bishop cannot go here and trap the rook, because black will give a checkmate with the rook b1, and here white protects the bishop. After that, rook goes to b6, you have rooks for trade. White captured the rook, a capture on b6, and then it is time to open the king with the move h3. So rook gives a check on a1, king goes up to h7, h2, and then rook to a2 attacks the pawn on f2. So king goes to that way. That was also possible, king to g3, but in the game he played king to g1, and rook to b2 was played. So rook e8 give a check to king, king gets out on the square g7, and rook d8 attack the pawns which stand on the dark squares from behind. So the pawn on d6 is hanging after that. Black decided to protect the pawn, playing rook to d2, but he cannot protect another pawn, and after rook b8 it is clear that white will capture on b6. So here we have move h5, and after that rook capture on b6, and one more time material is equal on the board. White play move, black play move h4, and after that rook gives a check on b7, king find a good cover on square h6, and rook goes to e7, rook to d1, give another check, king needs to go back on h2, and then rook to d4. Black wants to play with his active rook, rook to e1, and then king to g5. Slowly black is advancing with his king on the king side. So first he pushed the pawn from square h7 to square h4, and then he moved his king from h8 to g5, which is very good for him. That king is pretty safe on square g5. So rook to c1 was played because black wants to go with his bishop on d3, which will attack the pawn on c4. So rook c1, and then rook d2 attacks the pawn on f2, and here bishop to c6 was played, so bishop to c2. He could also capture on f2, and then white will go with the move rook to d1, which attacks the pawn on d6, and rook to c2 black will do because he also wants to attack pawn on c-file. So rook capture d6, rook capture on c4, and in this position black is a pawn up, and so that should be winning, but it is a bit complicated because he needs to advance with f and g pawns to win this game. But in this position, after bishop to c6, black play move bishop to c2. He still wants to protect his pawn on d6, and white play move f3. So this move creates some weak squares around the white king, and black recognized that, so he immediately started with the good moves, playing f5. He wants to advance on the king side. So bishop to e8, and just attack the pawn on g6, and that means that black king needs to stay close to pawn on g6. So he played king to f6, we have bishop to c6, and then king goes to e5, bishop to e8 he played, and then it is time to push pawn on g5. This is a dark square and that pawn cannot be attacked. So rook to e1 gives a check, king to f4, and then bishop goes to f7, bishop to d3 attacks the pawn, so bishop to d5, and then rook goes to c2, one more time attacks the pawn on c4. But here white play move rook to a1, and now if black captures on c4, rook will go on a4, pin the bishop and take the piece for him. So king to e3 was played, rook goes to a6, attack d6 pawn, so bishop to f1, another plan for a black. So he wants to attack on g2, and the only way that white can do and protect his pawn is playing the move f4. So he probably expected black will capture with the pawn on f4, and that will create a weak pawns here, or also if he capture with the king, that is not good enough, like like the Jan recognized here, so he played move g4 immediately, and his idea is clear. He wants to advance with the pawn on g3 that will give a check and completely lock the king for the squares h1 and g1. After that, black will try to give a checkmate using the first rank. So here white capture on g4, f capture g4, and king to g1 was played. Of course, black will play move g3, so he sacrificed f1 bishop, but white cannot capture because he will receive the checkmate with the move rook to c1, and rook to a1 was played, bishop to d3, after that rook to d1 and king capture on f4, rook to e1, and then rook to e2 was played. So black offered bishop rooks for trade. After that, it is clear that that endgame is winning. So if he capture, bishop capture, and in this position, black can easily win the game because he's playing with pawns and very good squares, and white cannot attack them. So after rook e2, rook goes to c1 and king e3, bishop to f3 attacks the rook, but rook has moved to the square b2, and his idea is to go on b1, offer rooks for trade, which is unstoppable, and in this position white resigned the game. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next game analysis.